There we go. Welcome to me not on the boat. At the moment I'm in Lisbon. It's raining and I'm going to do my second most popular video, which was my second most popular video request, which was all about how much it costs to convert your boat to electric. And these are going to be based on my costs, my Cadillac 9-meter boat. So let's go for some death by PowerPoint. This is my boat over here. I've spoken about how I put it together. I think it's about a video or two ago. You can see that. But today is all about the costs. There's a different view. You can see all my lovely solar panels. I had my drone out a little while ago, and I managed to record all of this. But let me talk to you about how things fit together. You saw there that I had 8 solar panels. Solar panels get connected to a panel disconnect box. This is to be able to cut the power to the solar panels, between the solar panels and the charge controllers if you need to. Those are the charge controllers. I've got 8 solar panels. They're all in parallel, and each pair goes to its own charge controller. And the charge controller is connected to another breaker box that's basically a fuse box in case there's too much current between the battery and the charge controllers. On the negative side, the charge controllers go directly to the bus bar, and on the positive side, they go through the breaker box into the bus bar, and then the bus bar from the positive side connects to a really big fuse into the 48-volt battery bank, and the negative side goes through a BMS, which protects the batteries and also acts a little bit like a fuse into the 48-volt battery bank. Now, all of this stuff is how power gets into the battery bank. But power also goes out of the battery bank, and it does that in a couple of different ways. And the first way is to the 2 motors. Now, the motor's negative side is connected directly from the bus bar, and then from the positive bus bar, each positive feed. Sorry, I've got a dog trying to climb onto my lap. Come, dog. Say hello to the camera. Hello. Each positive side goes through a fuse into the motors as well. So that's the power of the motors. There's one more thing I've got on my boat which takes power from the 48-volt battery bank, and that is my inverter. I do like having an inverter. It's a Victron inverter, 3000 VA or 2.4 kilowatt inverter, and that goes also through a fuse. So everything that goes from the positive bus bar does go through a fuse, and then it goes into a switch, so I can switch the inverter on and off. I never really switch it off. I leave it powered pretty much all the time. But there's one more piece over here, and that is this piece over here. There's a little resistor which is in parallel with the fuse. So what I typically do when you turn the inverter on, it's got giant huge capacitors inside it, and you don't want these capacitors to suck too much power from the battery, because it can damage the switch. It can damage what else could damage? I don't know. It's just a huge inrush of current. It could damage the inverter as well. So you actually want to charge up those capacitors nice and slowly. So what I first do is I've got a little switch over here which turns the resistor on, and that very slowly fills up the capacitors, and then I hit the main switch, and because of that you get no sparks and no arcing, which works very well. Alright, so that's how everything fits together, and you know what parts are involved, so now I can tell you about what each part costs. So my solar panels are SunPower 400-watt panels. They are pretty much the best panel money can buy at the moment, and because of that they're a little bit more expensive than most solar panels. These cost me, delivered to where I was putting the boat together in Pulla, €396 a piece. I need a lot of wire to connect the solar panels into the battery bank, and these are 6mm square wires that I used, special solar panel wires. They are lap cables, and all of the wiring was €132. And this is the breaker box. I told you about the breaker box that connects the panels themselves to the charge controllers. And inside this there were 4 breakers, one for each charge controller, but not a bad cost, €23 all up. And these are the charge controllers. Again, these are 48-volt charge controllers. They're the smallest 48-volt charge controllers Victron makes. Each €158. This is my positive bus bar. I've got a negative bus bar as well that looks identical. Amazon, €38 a piece. They're rated for 400 amps, so they're pretty good bus bars. And then this is the fuse box with fuses in it, and each fuse on average was about €11. Then I said I've got the fuse box. Now this is the fuse box which connects these MPPT controllers to the battery. I did that because you have to fuse every positive cable, and in this case I didn't want to fuse it. I wanted to use breakers, so I've got DC rated breakers inside there, 4 of them. The box itself was just €7. And this is the switch I was telling you about. It's a nice little Amazon switch. It's also rated for very, very high power. This one only goes to the inverter because the motors had switches built into it, and it was €16. Not too bad. There's the little resistor as well. The pre-charge resistor was €11. If you do ever hook up a very high powered inverter, get yourself one of these. It's definitely worth doing. What does the motor cost? These are the 6 kilowatt motors from propulsion, and they are €3,125 each. And there's my inverter. You don't need an inverter if you're converting a motor to electric, but I put one together. It is very nice to have. We leave it running full time. It's running at the moment. My Starlink is running off of it. We don't ever turn it off. It draws about 30 watts when it's on, and that's low enough for me not to worry about it. And it was €681 delivered. Quite an expensive piece, but yeah, we use electricity like we do in a house. One more piece to the inverter actually. While you can set up these charge controllers using an app, you can't set up the inverter with an app out the box. So I had to buy a little USB interface to the inverter to be able to program the voltages, and it was quite expensive at €75. And we're getting to the batteries now. So these are EVE 280K batteries, and to put a 48 volt battery bank together, you use 16 batteries in series. Each battery was €135. Moving on, the battery on the negative side has a BMS. The BMS is a must. You don't build a lithium battery without it. And this is quite a big BMS. It does 300 amps. You can see there's a huge relay over there. €118 for that. We're nearly done. This is the big cabling to go between the battery itself and all of the big items. Between the battery and the inverter, and between the battery and the motors. These are 35mm square wires. I used 2 of them between the battery and the bus bars, and then 1 of them between the bus bar and the motor, or the bus bar and the inverter. €70 for all of that wiring. Wasn't a lot. I think I only had 2 meters worth of wiring on each color, and I only used maybe just over a meter, 1.2 meters each. So I could have bought a little bit less. It is very nice tinned wire. All of these wires are tinned. This one is tinned as well, which is a must. And we've got the last item I spent money on, which was connectors and random stuff. These are I'm showing you a picture of the connectors that you use to attach the solar panels to the charge controllers. But there were a lot of ring connectors and little bits and pieces like that I had to buy as well. And my sundry column came to €98, which is not terribly expensive, but yeah, that's what it is. And that's the end of the slideshow. So we're going to flip now to my Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to stop the recording and I'll start another one so we can zoom in on the spreadsheet. So let me go and do that. Not yet. And let's add up all the numbers. So the first thing was my solar panels at 396 each, and I had 8 of those, so that was €3,169. The cable was 132 meters worth. One batch of 132, sorry, not 132 meters, €132 worth, €132 in total. Disconnect box, nice and cheap, one of those at €23. The charge controllers were 158 each, but I had 4, so that added up to 630. You can see the total running at the bottom corner over there at the moment. We're on 39. Bus bars, 38 times 2 was €76. Fuses, 11 times 4. I had 4 fuses in total. One main one for everything, and then I had an individual fuse for each motor and for the inverter. Breaker box, we had 4 breakers inside the breaker box, and everything including the box was €29. And the big switch going to the inverter was just €16. Hopefully it's a decent switch. It doesn't pull a lot of current. It's not often we pull 2 kilowatts plus on the inverter, maybe for cooking. For heating water we do about 1,500, and microwave is about 1,000. Pre-charge resistor I said was just €11. The motors was the bulk of the cost at 3,125 each, is another 6,250. So that has quite a big impact, but hopefully being electric motors, they'll last pretty much forever. Inverter was 681, there's one of those. The inverter interface, one of those at 75. The batteries were 135 euros each. I had 16 of them, so 2,160 euros worth of batteries. There are other batteries on the boat, of course. I've got a 12-volt battery bank, but that's not related to converting your boat to electric, so I'm not counting it here. The boat needed a 12-volt bank, or I could have used a DC to DC converter, but if you're converting a boat, you probably already have a 12-volt bank. Otherwise, you just add another 4 of those. BMS is a must. There's a range of different BMSs you can use. I'm very happy with the one I chose. Relays do take a little bit of energy to stay on and off, but it's so small it's not even noticeable on my whole system. So I would buy the same one again if I needed another one. The only thing it doesn't do very well is it doesn't balance very fast, but these batteries are so good they just always stay in balance, so that's not a big deal. Battery cable, 70 euros. Connectors and random were 98 euros. And there you go. The total cost to convert my boat to electric was 13,583 euros. And if I go and convert that to dollars quickly, and it adds up to $14,743, which, considering the fact that I'll never need to pay for fuel again, I never need to pay for electricity, I never need to pay to fill up gas, I think it's a bargain. If I look at what the cost would have been to buy 2 new diesel motors, I'd probably come in a little bit less, but I need to maintain those every year, they need to be serviced. If you buy a boat and the engines are dead, I think there is a definite case to be made for converting to electric rather than converting to a diesel. These are not all the costs. There are obviously some costs related to mounting and different things like that, but that's obviously something you need to do anyway. I'm also only counting the electric conversion. The most expensive thing I actually did to my boat was put on a new set of rigging, and that's not counted here as well. But this is purely the electric conversion costs. Anyway, thanks for joining us. In a month's time, hopefully I'll get back on the boat. This time with a bit of sails, and I might be buying some new sails, which will be interesting. But I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for watching.